The teenager who hacked NASA and the Pentagon, January 26, 2000. 6:47 a.m., Miami-Dade County, Florida. The house is surrounded. FBI agents crouch behind black SUVs, their breath visible in the cool morning air. Bulletproof vests. This is a federal operation. A helicopter circles overhead, its rotors slicing through the silence of a sleeping suburb. Neighbors peek through curtains. Someone's recording on a camcorder. Inside, a teenager sits at his computer. His screen glows blue in the darkness of his bedroom. Lines of code scroll past. His fingers hover over the keyboard, frozen. He knows they're out there. He's known for weeks, maybe months. The clicking of hard drives, the hum of servers, the digital evidence scattered across his room like spent bullet casings. "Federal agents, open the door!" The voice cuts through everything, sharp, final. Jonathan James doesn't move. He's 15 years old, a sophomore in high school. And for the past 6 months, he's been inside systems most adults couldn't even name. NASA, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. He stole software worth $1.7 million. Code that controlled life support on the International Space Station. He read emails from military officials discussing classified operations. He walked through digital hallways that housed America's most protected secrets. And now it's over. The door splinters. Boots on tile. Shouts. Flashlights sweeping across walls covered in posters and cables. They find him sitting there, calm, almost relieved. A child in a room full of machines. A kid who broke into the most secure networks on Earth using nothing but a computer and a phone line. But here's the question that would haunt everyone involved. How does a 15-year-old from South Florida, no formal training, no team, no resources, breach NASA and the Pentagon? What kind of mind does it take to outsmart the world's most sophisticated security systems? And what happens when you prove that everything we thought was secure isn't? This is the story of the boy who hacked the stars. Jonathan Joseph James was born December 12, 1983, in a quiet Miami suburb where most teenagers worried about football games and prom dates. Jonathan worried about root access. His childhood was unremarkable on the surface. Middle-class family, normal house, normal problems. But inside Jonathan's head, the world worked differently. While other kids played Nintendo, he was dismantling computers, learning how circuits talked to each other, how information flowed through invisible channels like water through pipes. By age 13, he wasn't just using computers. He was understanding them at a level that made adults uncomfortable. His parents noticed the late nights, the phone bills, hundreds of dollars from mysterious long-distance calls, the way he talked about networks and protocols with an intensity that seemed obsessive. They thought it was a phase, smart kid stuff. Maybe he'd become an engineer, work for Microsoft, make them proud. They didn't know he was already deeper than that. Jonathan discovered the internet when it was still the Wild West, the mid-1990s, before Google, before Facebook, before anyone really understood what this new digital frontier meant. Back then, security was an afterthought. Systems were built fast, patched later. Passwords were weak, firewalls were jokes. For someone like Jonathan, it was paradise. He started small, local networks, school systems, learning by doing, by failing, by trying again. He joined underground hacker communities, IRC channels where kids and criminals traded techniques like baseball cards. He adopted the handle Serum Raid, a username that would eventually appear in FBI reports and congressional hearings. In those chat rooms, Jonathan found his people. Not friends exactly, but minds that worked like his. Fast, curious, fearless. They didn't hack for money or fame. They hacked because they could. Because the systems were there, locked and tempting, daring someone to crack them open. By 15, Jonathan James wasn't playing anymore. He was hunting. The question that drove him wasn't, what can I do, but what can I see? Behind every locked door, every password, every firewall, was information, knowledge, proof that he could go where others couldn't. But there was something else too, something darker, a hunger that couldn't be satisfied. Each successful breach only made the next target more necessary. Each system he cracked revealed 10 more. The internet was infinite, and Jonathan wanted to see all of it. He had no idea that his next target would change everything, that it would make him famous, that it would ruin his life. June 1999. Jonathan James is sitting in his bedroom, bathed in monitor light, when he finds the door. Not a physical door, a digital one. a vulnerability in the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, a branch of the U.S. Department of Defense responsible for countering weapons of mass destruction. The kind of agency that shouldn't have vulnerabilities, the kind of network that 15-year-old kids from Florida should never, ever access. But there it is. A misconfigured server, a weak password, a crack in the armor. Jonathan slips through. The rush is immediate. It always is. That moment when unauthorized access flashes green on the screen, when you're suddenly inside a place you're not supposed to be, it's better than any drug. His heart pounds. His pupils dilate. Every nerve ending fires at once. He's in. The DTRA network unfolds before him like a map of classified secrets. Emails between military officials, personnel records, procurement documents, project names he doesn't recognize but knows are important. He installs malicious software, tools that would allow him to return undetected and monitor network traffic. For weeks, he watches, he collects, he reads, and then he gets greedy. NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the organization that put men on the moon, that built the Hubble telescope, that was currently assembling the International Space Station 250 miles above Earth. Jonathan wanted in. He found his entry point through a contractor in Dulles, Virginia, a company that provided technical support to NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. Their security had vulnerabilities that a skilled hacker could exploit. Jonathan found them. From there, he moved laterally through trusted connections, slipping deeper into NASA's network. Suddenly, he was inside the Marshall Space Flight Center's network, the real network, where actual NASA operations happened, where engineers designed spacecraft and monitored satellites and coordinated with astronauts orbiting Earth. Jonathan downloaded everything he could find: software modules, source code, technical specifications. But the crown jewel, the thing that would later make headlines and destroy his life, was a small program controlling environmental systems on the International Space Station. Temperature regulation, humidity control, life support. The code was worth $1.7 million, not because of the lines themselves, but because of what they represented. Thousands of hours of engineering, testing, certification, code that kept astronauts alive in the vacuum of space. And Jonathan stole it like someone shoplifting candy. He didn't do it for money, didn't sell it, didn't even fully understand what he had. He stole it because it was there, because he could. Because in that moment, hunched over his keyboard in suburban Florida, he felt powerful in a way that nothing else in his 15-year-old life could make him feel. But power has a price. NASA's IT team noticed something was wrong almost immediately. Unusual network traffic, files being accessed and copied. Their systems were compromised, but they didn't know how badly. They didn't know someone had stolen actual spacecraft software. On July 8, 1999, NASA shut down their entire computer system. Every server, every workstation, every connection. For 21 days, one of the world's most advanced scientific organizations went dark. Engineers couldn't access their files. Projects stopped. Communication with the International Space Station became complicated. The shutdown cost $41,000 in repairs and lost productivity. And somewhere in Florida, Jonathan James was starting to realize he'd made a mistake. A very, very big mistake. The FBI doesn't move fast. Not at first. Cybercrime in 1999 is still a novelty, a curiosity. Most agents don't understand the internet beyond email and websites. Hacking is something from movies, teenagers in hoodies typing furiously while dramatic music plays. The idea that someone could actually steal spacecraft software from NASA, could breach the Pentagon, seemed almost fictional. But the evidence was real. Digital footprints, log files, IP addresses, timestamps showing unauthorized access, data exfiltration, malicious software planted in classified networks. Someone had waltzed through America's most secure systems like they were checking their email. The investigation began quietly. NASA's security team, the Department of Defense's Computer Crime Division, the FBI's nascent cyber unit. They traced connections, followed digital breadcrumbs, analyzed network traffic patterns, and slowly, impossibly, the trail led to South Florida, to a residential neighborhood, a normal house, a teenager's bedroom. The agents couldn't believe it at first. A 15-year-old? This level of sophistication? This degree of access? It had to be a professional, a foreign intelligence operative, a skilled criminal with years of experience. But the evidence didn't lie. Jonathan James, High school sophomore, had done this alone. They watched him for weeks, monitored his internet activity, built their case brick by digital brick. They needed to be sure, to understand the full scope of the breach, to determine if he was working with others, if there was a larger conspiracy at play. There wasn't. Just a kid, a computer, and an insatiable curiosity that had crossed every legal and ethical line. Inside his bedroom, Jonathan knew something was coming. You don't hack NASA and walk away clean. He'd covered his tracks as best he could, used proxies, spoofed IP addresses, deleted logs. But he also knew that nothing is ever truly deleted, that somewhere in the vast digital infrastructure he'd violated, evidence existed. He couldn't sleep, couldn't focus in school. Every knock on the door felt like the end. Every police siren in the distance made his stomach drop. His parents noticed, asked questions. "Are you okay? Is something wrong? Talk to us." How do you tell your parents you've committed federal crimes? That you've stolen from NASA? That men with badges might be coming soon? He didn't tell them. Couldn't tell them. So he waited. And on that January morning in 2000, when the SUVs pulled up and the agents surrounded the house and the helicopter circled overhead, Jonathan James felt something he hadn't felt in months. Relief. The arrest was gentle, almost anticlimactic. No wrestling, no handcuffs. Just agents in the house taking computers, boxing up cables and hard drives and floppy disks. His parents stood in the hallway, confused and terrified, watching federal agents dismantle their son's bedroom like archaeologists excavating a crime scene. Jonathan answered their questions calmly. Yes, he'd done it. Yes, he'd been inside NASA. Inside the Defense Department. He didn't resist, didn't deny. What was the point? At the FBI field office in Miami, agents couldn't reconcile the kid in front of them with the intrusion data on their screens. He looked like he should be worried about algebra homework, not spacecraft software theft. But when they asked him technical questions, when they walked through the breach step by step, Jonathan spoke with a clarity and sophistication that chilled them. This wasn't a kid who stumbled into something. This was someone who understood systems at a fundamental level, who saw vulnerabilities the way chess masters see moves ahead. "Why did you do it?" they asked. Jonathan shrugged. "I wanted to see if I could." That answer, simple, honest, terrifying, would define everything that came next. September 21st, 2000. Jonathan James stands in a Miami courtroom wearing clothes that don't quite fit. His parents sit behind him, their faces drawn and gray. Reporters fill the gallery, notebooks ready. This case has attracted attention, national attention. CNN, the New York Times, tech blogs that barely existed a year ago. The first juvenile ever convicted of cybercrime against the United States government. The prosecutor's voice is sharp, clinical. He lists the crimes like items on a grocery list. Unauthorized access to a protected computer, interception of wire communications, theft of government property. Each charge carries years of potential prison time. But Jonathan is 15, 16 now, still a minor. The judge looks at him with something between disappointment and fascination. Here is a child who breached NASA, a teenager who read classified military emails like comic books. The question hanging in the courtroom isn't just about punishment, it's about precedent. What do you do with a kid like this? Jonathan's lawyer argues for leniency. He's young, no prior record, didn't sell anything, didn't cause intentional harm. This was curiosity, not malice. A brilliant mind pointed in the wrong direction. The prosecutor counters hard. 21 days of NASA shutdowns, $41,000 in damages, compromised national security, stolen spacecraft software. The Department of Defense still doesn't know everything he accessed, everything he saw. And there's the bigger fear, unspoken but present. If one teenager can do this, what's stopping others? The judge deliberates. The courtroom holds its breath. The sentence comes down like a guillotine. 6 months house arrest, probation until he turns 18, community service, a ban on recreational computer use, no internet, no hacking, no programming unless supervised and approved. For most people, this would be mercy, a second chance. For Jonathan James, it's suffocation. Imagine being fluent in a language and being told you can never speak it again. Imagine having a talent, something you're better at than almost anyone in the world, and being forbidden from using it. That's what the sentence meant. No computers meant no identity, no purpose, no outlet for the thing that made him feel alive. His parents installed monitoring software, checked his room daily. The probation officer visited weekly. Jonathan complied, stayed clean, attended counseling sessions where psychologists tried to understand what drove him. But inside, he was dying. The media called him a prodigy, a cautionary tale. Some hacker forums treated him like a legend. Serum Raid, the kid who hacked NASA. Others said he was reckless, that he'd brought heat on the entire underground community, that his arrest led to crackdowns and investigations that hurt everyone. Jonathan didn't care about either narrative. He just wanted to code again, to feel that rush of solving impossible problems, of seeing systems the way most people see crossword puzzles. The months passed slowly. He finished high school, applied to colleges, though his felony conviction closed most doors. Some universities wouldn't touch him. Others offered conditional admission with strict computer use policies. He tried to move forward, to be normal, to pretend that the part of his brain that understood networks and protocols and vulnerabilities didn't exist anymore. But you can't unlearn what you know, can't unsee what you've seen. In 2002, Jonathan's probation ended. He was 18, legally an adult, free to use computers again, though the felony would follow him forever. He got a job, started working in IT, legitimate work, helping companies secure their systems. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The kid who hacked NASA now protecting networks from people like himself. For a few years, it seemed like maybe he'd found peace, a path forward, a way to use his skills without destroying his life. But the past has a way of catching up. And in Jonathan James's case, it would come back with devastating finality. May 2007. Jonathan James is 23 years old now. He works as a security analyst, lives in Pinecrest, Florida, tries to maintain something resembling a normal life. The conviction is 7 years behind him. Ancient history. A mistake from childhood that he's paid for, learned from, moved past. He tells himself this every day, but the internet never forgets. His name, his real name, his handle. CrimRaid exists in FBI databases, in hacker archives, in cautionary tales told to computer science students. Once you're in the system, you never really leave. Then the news breaks. TJX Companies, parent corporation of TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods, has been breached. Hackers stole 94 million credit card numbers, customer data, payment information. It's one of the largest retail data breaches in history. The FBI launches an investigation. They're looking for suspects, for leads, for anyone with the skills and history to pull off something this sophisticated. And they remember Jonathan James. The agents show up at his door on a Tuesday morning. Polite but firm. They have questions. Where was he on certain dates? Can they see his computers? Does he know anything about the TJX breach? Jonathan's stomach drops. That old feeling, fear, anger, helplessness, floods back instantly. I didn't do this, he says. I haven't hacked anything in years. But his denials sound hollow, even to himself, because he knows how this works. He's been here before. Once you're a suspect, once you're in their files, every unsolved cybercrime becomes your problem. They seize his computers, again, his hard drives, again, his entire digital life packed into evidence boxes and carried away, again. The investigation drags on for months. Federal agents tracking down leads, interviewing associates, analyzing forensic data. Jonathan hires lawyers he can't afford, tries to prove a negative, that he didn't do something, wasn't somewhere, had nothing to do with crimes he barely understands. Other suspects emerge. A ring of hackers, mostly international, sophisticated operations running credit card fraud schemes worth millions. These aren't curious teenagers. They're organized criminals. But Jonathan's name stays in the mix. The ghost of his 15-year-old self haunting his adult life. The stress becomes unbearable. He can't work. Who hires someone under federal investigation for massive data theft? Can't sleep. Can't think. His friends drift away. His family tries to support him, but they're exhausted too. How many times can you stand by someone whose past keeps exploding? By 2008, prosecutors are building cases against multiple suspects. Plea deals are offered. Indictments are prepared. The walls are closing in, and Jonathan feels it. He maintains his innocence, takes a polygraph test, passes, provides alibis, shows evidence of legitimate employment during the breach timeline. His lawyers argue forcefully. He's been clean for years. Why would he risk everything now? But the prosecutors have their doubts. They see patterns, similarities between techniques. Could be coincidence, could be something else. On May 18, 2008, Jonathan James writes a final letter. He writes about the investigation, about losing everything, again, about how the system destroyed him twice, first at 15 and now at 25, about how he can't escape what he did as a kid, how it will follow him forever, how every major cybercrime will circle back to him. I have no faith in the justice system, he writes. Perhaps my actions today, and this letter, will send a stronger message to the public. Either way, I have lost control over this situation, and this is my only way to regain control. But control is an illusion in moments like these. When the weight becomes unbearable, when options narrow to a single dark point, that's when reaching out matters most. Jonathan didn't see that, couldn't see that, and by the time anyone realized how far he'd fallen, it was too late. That afternoon in his Pinecrest home, Jonathan James takes his own life. He's 25 years old. The funeral is small, quiet, family and a few close friends who stayed when everyone else left. Jonathan's parents bury their son under a Florida sky that seems too bright, too indifferent. They don't know what to say. What do you say when your child's curiosity, his brilliant, unstoppable curiosity, leads to federal charges at 15 and silence at 25? The investigation continues without him. 3 months after Jonathan's death, federal prosecutors announce indictments against 11 suspects in the TJX breach. International hackers, organized criminals running sophisticated credit card fraud operations across multiple countries. Jonathan James is not among them. His name is cleared posthumously. The evidence shows he had no involvement. The FBI suspicions, the months of investigation, the pressure that consumed his final year, all of it based on a past he couldn't escape and a crime he didn't commit. His lawyers release a statement. His family releases a statement. They all say the same thing. He was innocent. He told you he was innocent, and nobody listened until it was too late. The words from his final letter spread through tech communities like wildfire. Forums explode with anger and grief. Jonathan becomes a martyr, a symbol of government overreach, of a justice system that punishes potential instead of proof, of how society treats hackers not as humans but as permanent threats. But the truth is more complicated than symbolism. Jonathan James did hack NASA, did breach the Pentagon, did steal software worth $1.7 million. Those weren't false accusations or youthful mistakes blown out of proportion. He committed serious federal crimes at 15, and there were consequences. The tragedy isn't that he was punished. The tragedy is that he could never move past it, that a conviction at 15 defined him forever, that every time he tried to rebuild, his past dragged him back, that when another major breach happened, investigators automatically looked at him, not because of evidence, but because once you're a hacker, you're always a hacker in their eyes. That when the pressure became unbearable, when the walls closed in again, when history repeated itself in the cruelest possible way, he saw no other way out. NASA eventually recovered. The Department of Defense strengthened their systems. The TJX breach led to massive reforms in retail data security. Laws changed. Protocols improved. The digital world learned from each intrusion, each vulnerability exposed. But Jonathan James never got to be part of that progress. He never got to use his talents to build instead of break. Never got to prove that the 15-year-old who cracked NASA's systems could have become a 25-year-old who protected them. Never got the chance to show that redemption was possible, that people could change, that mistakes, even massive ones, didn't have to be death sentences. He never got to be anything except Seer Memraid, the cautionary tale, the juvenile hacker, the eternal suspect. His story raises questions we still haven't answered. What do we do with brilliant kids who break rules? How do we punish crimes without destroying futures? How do we balance security with second chances? When does a debt to society get paid? And when does it follow you beyond the point of endurance? Jonathan's mother said it best in an interview years later. He was a kid. A smart, curious, reckless kid who made terrible choices. But he was still a kid. And the system never let him be anything else. They never gave him room to breathe, to grow, to become someone different. She pauses. Her voice breaks. He tried. God, he tried so hard to move forward. But how do you outrun your own shadow? If you or someone you know is struggling with similar pressure, with investigations, with a past that won't let go, reach out. Talk to someone. These lifelines are available 24/7. Because unlike what Jonathan believed in his darkest moment, losing control of one situation doesn't mean you've lost control of everything. There are always other options. Always. Today, Jonathan James's name appears in computer science textbooks. in documentaries about cybersecurity, in lectures about ethics and consequences. He's studied, analyzed, held up as proof of what happens when talent meets temptation. But those lessons came at a price measured in years stolen and potential extinguished. The internet never forgets. Systems get stronger, firewalls improve. But the human cost of digital crime, the lives broken, the futures stolen, the brilliance extinguished, that part of the story gets buried under code and court documents. Jonathan James proved that a teenager with a computer could hack the stars. But he also proved something darker, something we're still struggling to understand. That in the digital age, your worst mistake can define you forever. That redemption is promised but rarely delivered. That sometimes the weight of who you were at 15 becomes too heavy to carry at 25. His gravestone in Florida is simple. Just his name and dates. No mention of NASA or the Pentagon. No CUM raid. No cautionary tale carved in marble. Just a young man who wanted to see if he could breach the impossible. And a system that never let him forget he did.